Hi folks, with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio radio live stream. I've had a few online appointments or conversations that have been kicked into next week, and I'm able to delegate some work to one of my colleagues. So I thought, what am I going to do with my time? And what the hell, I'm going to do a couple more videos. So that's what I'm doing. Now, here's an interesting take on black people arrested more often and convicted and sent to prison more often than white people. And the assertion by the race grifter hustler activists is this is all because of waycism and white privilege and Hitler, and it's all that sort of stuff. But is it so? And there's a sort of a different take, or a couple of different takes that I've seen, where the grifter comes at it from a slightly different angle, and maybe realizing that the idea of saying, well, the only reason black people are put in prison is because of racism, when there's a very large body of evidence to say, well, if you commit crimes, you're more likely to go to prison. So, but let's just sort of untangle this, because the race grifter hustlers, and by the way, quite a few social justice warriors, see that there's a whole lot of ideology that's wrapped up in criminality, causes of it, and suggestions that maybe social workers might produce a better outcome. People that go to prison tend to come out, they commit crimes again, this sort of thing. Whereas if a social worker is handling them and there's community service work, then maybe it's less likely they'll commit crimes in the future, and therefore the rehabilitation aspect of using social work rather than the criminal justice system may have wider dividends for society. No, I don't believe, there are probably situations where that may apply. So, but I don't think it's a fix-all. But coming to the different take on it, because the argument is, if somebody gets pulled over and they've got outstanding warrants for their arrest, or they haven't got a valid driver's license, or they haven't registered their motor vehicle, or they've got some faults with the car, like the stoplights don't work, or whatever. There's no one really saying that once pulled over, that the people won't be treated more or less equally. So there isn't really a whole lot of pushback on that. So the new theory that's developing is that black people are pulled over more often than white people for arbitrary reasons, just being pulled over, you look suspicious type thing. And once they're pulled over, then a license check or a registration check, or checks for warrants, check for mechanical faults or electrical faults with the motor vehicle. And it's then that the injustice, so the grifters argue, it's then that the injustice occurs, because the white person is less likely to be pulled over. Therefore, the fact that they have outstanding warrants against them are less likely to be discovered. It's only because the black people are being rando pulled over that these problems with the, whether it be warrants or registration, it's only then that they're discovered. So really the basis, the first cause of stopping the black person is the issue. Because if it wasn't racist, you wouldn't pull them over. The cops wouldn't pull them over. And if you didn't pull them over, then you wouldn't discover that they've got 1 million outstanding warrants against that type of stuff. So I kind of see the point, I guess, but it's this American thing with you have to have due cause to pull someone up. So they're saying the due cause factor is racist. That then exposes all these other things that the black person has done, such as a warrant. Now they're arguing that the white people have got just as much problems with outstanding warrants and the like, but they don't get pulled over as much, which is why you see the difference in outcomes. Well, this is patently absurd. I do see the point, but it's absurd to say that the white people all got the same amount of warrants out and so on. Then the argument flips on to the next stage to say, all right, then, well, white people, because of white privilege, have more money, which means they're more able to update their registration or renew their license or put their car into the shop to get fixed than the black person is. So because the black person has less money, less privilege, and not so many jobs, or education is as good, that sort of stuff, that has a knock-on effect of them not having enough money to do the things they need to do, pay fines, fix their car and so on, register their car and the like. Therefore, if a white person and black both can get pulled over, but because the white person has more money to do all those things, then they're much less likely to have an unregistered vehicle. Whereas the black person is more likely to have an unregistered vehicle because they have less money, they can't get the car fixed, that sort of stuff. Now, the next level they go to is that white people won't get as rigorous a check of the motor vehicle as a black person will get. So the argument is that the police will say, do a detailed check of the tyres, stop lights, indicator lights, headlights, do all sorts of checks that they wouldn't do on a white person. Now, I don't know about that. I don't agree with that. I think if the car looks like a beat up heap of shit, that the cops are more likely to go through it. Whereas this then goes back into the money side. Well, a white person can afford to buy a new motor vehicle, which is in better operating order. The black person can only afford to buy a heap of shit car, and therefore they're more likely to have mechanical faults or other faults that they can't afford to get fixed or get looked at. So they're more likely to be penalised for that. But that's really their a reflection of their economic understatus, coming back to oppression again, and therefore that shouldn't be criminality. They're being criminalised for being poor or criminalised just for being black is the argument. Now, none of those really hold up. I do see the point again, but none of those hold up to scrutiny, which is an interesting way of looking at it. So the argument is whites and blacks just commit crimes at the same rate, but because blacks are scrutinised more closely due to racism, their crimes are exposed or discovered or now, there are other things that a white person is more likely to have a permanent, a long-term residence, an address, and a current address. They own a house or this sort of thing. So that it's much easier for the police to find white people when they need to, or for the authorities generally. For a black person that may be living in a different place every week and moving around with great frequency, then it's much harder for the police to find them, next to impossible. And in some cases, the police don't even bother because the black person they're looking for could be anywhere. So why try when the resources required to chase them? So the only time you get to find these people is at a traffic stop or for some minor misdemeanor. Go, hey, okay, stop, let's check on you. Then all these things are discovered. But the argument for here is to say, well, so what if someone's got a million outstanding arrest warrants? That doesn't matter. The only reason you stop them is because they were black, and therefore you didn't have due cause or proper cause, and therefore those warrants that they have shouldn't matter because you wouldn't have found out about them unless you'd been a racist. So these are some of the these are some of the arguments sort of doing the rounds at the moment, and are feeding into this why black people arrested more often. And now the other thing is, and I mentioned this in a few videos ago, looking at the police cam footage gets posted online, the amount of times that the black people commit crimes once they've been pulled over, and maybe they only pulled over something minor, like one of the stoplights is out, so they get some bullshit fine. That's the end of it. But instead of just quietly, following the police officer's instructions, taking the ticket and then letting it go, instead of that, they decide to argue and struggle with the police. They have a punch up with the police. They're openly, they try and run away. They try and resist arrest. Then it escalates even further. So what could have been just a simple ticket for shooting a stop sign or something, what could have been just a simple ticket then ended there, has turned into a major drama, which has involved arrests, which involved appearing before a judge, and maybe doing a bit of jail time or getting a heavy fine or getting maybe they're disqualified from driving for a time, something like that. Also, this idea that the amount of times that black people smoke marijuana in the car and or doing drugs of some sort and get pulled over, and the drugs get discovered, or the smell of marijuana, that sort of thing, and then they've got that to deal with, and so they think, oh, holy shit, I'm in a bit of trouble here, and I'm on probation, so I'll run away. That's the solution here. And so that then turns into a major drama. So because the black people are pulled over often have other issues they want to they'd rather not have to discuss with talk about with the cops, rather than as they see it, the easier option is to just run away or try and get away. And then as they see it, they can kick the can down the road until the next time they're pulled over. So this not dealing with issues and letting them hang and just hoping that I can get away with it. Look, I don't have a fixed address. There's no way these guys are going to find me. And I'm just hoping on that. But just a random pull up. Now, this is also why the police will tend to be a little keener to pull over black people in high crime black neighbourhoods. Because there's a high likelihood that the police will come across someone who does have outstanding warrants, and they've got no other way of finding these people because they've got no fixed address. So these are anyway. Looking at this, the race grifters say, well, the reason the black guy is running away isn't because he's got outstanding warrants. He doesn't want, it's because of historical oppression. So he's fighting with the police. He's trying to run away. He's becoming violent when he's just been pulled over for shooting a stop sign, or she is becoming violent because of their reaction and response to historical oppression. So if it hadn't been for historical oppression, they wouldn't behave this way, and therefore there wouldn't be the drama. So it's still white people's fault anyway. So these are some of the other. I just wanted to sort of do this video to give a more sort of rounded appreciation of the type of thinking that is out there and is being applied to race relations, and particularly in regard to criminal justice, and to see the sort of things that are going on. Now, the last thing I'll mention here is, is social work an option to the criminal justice system? Well, I think there would be instances when it is. I mean, if you're going to go to the time, expense, and aggravation of locking people up, why not go that extra yard? Why not make that extra bit and try and turn it into a commitment? Say, okay, well, you're going to learn a trade while you're in prison, assuming they're there for that period of time, or you're going to learn something. You're going to come out with more job skills than you went in with. And so you can go out and we'll place you in a job in, I don't know whatever it is, labouring or whatever, we'll place you in a job when you can, so you can walk straight into a job with the certified skills and competence and so on to be able to do that. These sort of things would be a huge help. There have been pilot projects and projects I've seen around the place. As far as I can tell, they seem to work rather well, but it doesn't work with everybody, I suppose. So those options. In terms of people doing minor misdemeanor stuff and going, constantly be going to getting convicted for it, is prison the answer there? Well, I don't know. Social work. The idea of social work is that they can be sort of encouraged into a different type of attitude and lifestyle with social workers helping them. I don't know. I think there should be pilot projects in that. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it requires, just as an idea, it was something that would require a lot of fine tuning. And as usual, these things will be packed with activists rather than people that genuinely want to help and genuinely want to do something, that genuinely want to fix problems. Because if you don't come to this with genuinely wanting to fix the problems, then I don't think starry-eyed, ideological social work is going to make any difference at all. You've been Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.